everyone. In this presentation, I will be discussing mobile dog grooming and its effects on biodiversity. I understand the focus of grooming may seem a bit strange since most talks of biodiversity loss stem from broader topics such as deforestation or pollution. However, in this quick 10-minute presentation, I hope to show you that each of our actions, intentional or not, big or small, all have a part in biodiversity on Earth. I first want to share with you this quick 2-minute video that helps clarify biodiversity loss and where we are today with it.
Earth is full of life. There are thousands of habitats and ecosystems, and millions of species of animals, plants, fungi, and insects. This is biodiversity, the sum total of all different life on Earth. Every one of these species depends on all the others for survival, including ourselves. We need trees that clean our air and water, animals and plants that provide us with food, medicine, and biofuels, and insects that pollinate our crops. The more biodiversity there is, the more resilient the environment is. But when this delicate balance is upset, entire ecosystems can collapse. And right now, that is exactly what's happening. As our society and demand for resources grows, our activities are causing unprecedented habitat destruction all over the world, triggering what some call the sixth mass extinction. In just the last 50 years, wildlife populations have been reduced by 60%. 40% of the world's plant species are also at risk, and the insect population is collapsing globally. Loss of biodiversity is perhaps the biggest consequence of the climate crisis. It threatens our food supply, destabilizes our ecosystems, and increases the risk of disasters such as a global pandemic. Even though a lot of damage has already been done, not all is lost. In fact, we have what it takes to fix this. Despite the rapid biodiversity loss we are experiencing, our world has a remarkable capacity to adapt and recover quickly through built-in self-healing mechanisms. If we embrace sustainable development policies, research has found that most ecosystems can recover within just one lifetime. At One Tree Planted, we work with our partners to restore forest ecosystems by planting millions of trees all over the world. The movement to preserve our biodiversity is growing every day, and you can be a part of it. Join us.
From that video, we can see that biodiversity loss has 4 main components that facilitate it. Human activity, like those new developments in or near your neighborhood. Anthropogenetic factors, which are changes in the ecosystem due to human interaction, such as climate change. And ecological and environmental factors. Something to take note of between these 4 factors are that they are not linear, but all interact in a cycle. How does this have anything to do with mobile grooming? Well, I'll tell you. The connecting point lies in the carbon emissions being released from the grooming vehicles, which affect climate change. Climate change is formerly known as global warming. This change in the climate occurs when the warmth from within the Earth cannot properly escape due to greenhouse gases trapping them. This in turn causes Earth's surface temperature to rise also, which can then lead to a cascading effect of negative consequences. This is not only an at-home problem. The EPA shows that globally, transportation makes up 14% of greenhouse gas emissions. And not shown here is that of that 14%, roughly 65% of those exhaust greenhouse gases are CO2 emissions. So what can you do to stop and reduce these rising carbon emissions in our atmosphere? If you are in the mobile grooming field or look to be, you can start by tracking your mileage and being mindful of how often and how far you travel daily. If you aren't a groomer and simply commute around your town or city, perhaps carpooling or a different more eco option like a bus or a train can work. Mass transportation holds more people and therefore emits less CO2 than those individuals would driving their own vehicles in the same direction. There are some other options to discuss, but for now, I want to take a deeper dive and show exactly where mobile grooming lies on the biodiversity loss map. In this framework, the chain reaction starts when groomers start their van engines. A cold start, or initial start of a combustion engine, is where most CO2 particles are clustered and released. This automatically initiates the climate change cycle. It goes either of two ways. One, you see increased unusual weather events that lead to alterations of land and water structures. This directly leads to biodiversity loss and back at square one, climate change. Two, because the Earth is warming up and evaporating the water from the Earth's surface, water vapor in the atmosphere is increased. Since water vapor is a greenhouse gas, this also traps in warmth. Additionally, since bodies of water are being evaporated, the waters are turning darker and absorbing more UV rays, further heating the Earth, which again leads us back to climate change. Some practices to reduce these emission values in cars are through the use of electric battery cars, hybrid cars, or programs like Hagerty's Eco Program. Hagerty's takes your mileage and converts it to equal how many tree seeds to plant in order to overthrow your carbon emissions. Next, I will show a video that exhibits how electric and similarly hybrid vehicles compare to standard combustion engine vehicles on the road.
Here's a question. How much cleaner are battery electric cars compared to gasoline-powered cars? To find out, the Union of Concerned Scientists studied the total global warming emissions of each vehicle throughout every stage of its life, from manufacturing, to driving, to disposal. And there's a big difference. Both cars start out on the assembly line with similar parts made of raw materials like steel and aluminum. For a gasoline car, this manufacturing and assembling stage generates about 7 tons of emissions. Battery electric cars, meanwhile, are powered by, you guessed it, a large battery. This requires more energy and materials to produce for an 84-mile range battery electric car, bringing its emissions tally up to roughly 8 tons. But what happens when they hit the road? Gas-powered cars produce pollution with every gallon of gas they burn, with even more emissions coming from extracting, refining, and transporting the fuel to gas stations. Electric cars, on the other hand, run on electricity, which can be much cleaner than gasoline, depending on how the electricity is made. 2/3 of Americans live in regions where charging an electric car produces fewer global warming emissions than driving even a 50-mile-per-gallon gasoline car. By the end of their lives, the average gas car will rack up 57 tons of global warming emissions, compared to 28 tons for a battery electric car. Disposing and recycling each car adds less than 1 ton of emissions. And remember that electric car battery? It can be recycled or reused. In the final tally, an 84-mile range battery electric car cuts global warming emissions by more than 50% compared with a similar-sized gas-powered car, making up for the battery's manufacturing emissions within 1 year of driving. And as the country adds more and more renewable sources of electricity, driving electric will get even better. So there you have it, straight from the engineers at the Union of Concerned Scientists. Electric cars, clean.
In my opinion, hybrid vehicles for now seem to be a more practical choice in cutting CO2 emissions. Most people like driving their own cars, so adding in the comfort and reliability of choosing to charge up or gas up seems to attract more people than electric cars. Hagerty, however, seems to be the best option to make a bigger impact, but it requires patience in a high-speed generation. Looking closer at this picture from earlier, we can see how each car type, combustion engine cars and electric battery cars, each emit a certain amount of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Where it is emitted changes though. CO2 in the combustion engine is emitted in the beginning production like shown in the earlier video, and at the end, emitting into the city where there is a cluster of people. In electric vehicles, this happens only in the production phase, so while both emit CO2, electric and hybrid vehicles can cut that amount in half. Cleaner air allows all habitats and species to thrive, which protects Earth's biodiversity and health. So let's spread the word. To do this, I propose handing out cute pins like shown on screen. These motivational pins will have both grooming and biodiversity symbols with words that encourage activism and change in how we produce cars and how we use them. They can be pinned to apparel and bags to be proudly shown. Looking forward, I will be taking into account all of these factors when considering on opening my own mobile dog grooming salon. My actions, like your actions, either take away, maintain, or add to biodiversity. So in the future, and today, I will mind my vehicle carbon emissions to promote cleaner air and a better and healthier tomorrow.